Well, a new state of play in the GOP race for the White House after last night's primary results. Donald Trump winning with 32.5% of the vote, followed by double-digit performances by both Senators Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. Ben Carson, Governor John Kasich, and now former presidential candidate Jeb Bush, all polling in the single digits. Senator Marco Rubio writing off these candidates, declaring the battle for the GOP nomination as a three-man race now. But that's not how my next guest sees it. The Kasich campaign saying last night marked the start of a four-person race for the nomination, adding he won the so-called governor's bracket. Let's talk about that with Ohio Governor and presidential candidate John Kasich. Governor, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Maria.
So, I mean, you've got Marco Rubio out. I want to ask you about you winning the governor's bracket. I think that's a good way to look at it. But first, you've got Marco Rubio out saying, look, this is a three-person race at this point. Tell our viewers, Governor, what the justification is for you to stay in this race at this point.
Well, look, we've only had two primaries and one caucus. And as you know, in New Hampshire, I did very well. And, you know, we just going to continue to move forward. We never expected to compete aggressively in South Carolina. But now, you know, even yesterday, I was in Vermont, Massachusetts. I head to Virginia on Monday. We'll be in Mississippi, Tennessee. And think about what's coming. You know, we've got Illinois, go to the Midwest, to Michigan. So we feel, you know, this is a long way to go. And there's, I think, 51 elections that are yet to go in this whole cycle. So we feel like we're moving on. And frankly, people didn't think I'd get 1% of the vote in South Carolina. So onward and upward.
So were you surprised?
We think it is
we
think it is a four-man race. And when people take a good hard look at the experience I've had. And there's another thing, Maria, that's happening. People in the country are finally beginning to hear me. Look, these candidates have spent between all of them about $50 million, and I've spent about 15, and we just keep chugging along. So we feel good.
But money is tight, and that's the issue. I mean, that's probably one of the key reasons. Jeb Bush yesterday said, look, I've got to step down at this point. How confident are you that you could go into all of these contests coming up? You're visiting all of these states, given the money that you have on hand now.
Well, it's a challenge for everybody to try to figure out how to get to all of these states. And what you do is you put a strategy together as to where you think you should target. You know, we're having big crowds in Massachusetts. Same thing in Vermont. We are, I guess, sold out tomorrow in Virginia, and so we'll make strategic decisions about where we want to go and how we apply the proper resources. But look, there's been 16 people in the race. It's really down to 5, maybe legitimately down to about 4. And we had a lot of governors in the race, and I'm the last one standing, and I feel very good about that.
Which is why your team declaring you the winner of the governor's bracket. Look, you make a good point about substance, right, Governor? You've got the goods. You've balanced the budget. You've led the state of Ohio to greatness, and the resume is there, and yet you have to break out and break through in the face of Donald Trump, who seems to be dominating the oxygen. What's the plan to do it?
Well, look, you just have to keep going. And I think as this field has shrunk, people are going to have more and more of a chance to be able to hear what your message is. And that's really what it gets down to. It's a long way to go. And I believe at the end, people are going to decide they want somebody who actually can deliver and somebody who's going to be positive. And I've stayed out here in the constructive and positive lane, and I'm getting great feedback on it. So we're going to keep going, Maria. I mean, look, people said I wouldn't get in the race, I wouldn't be able to raise the money, I wouldn't get to New Hampshire, all these things, and here we are. We're still moving forward.
Would you consider teaming up with a Donald Trump, with a Marco Rubio as the vice president candidate?
No.
You wouldn't consider it?
No.
Why not?
Because I'm the governor of Ohio. I've got the second best job in America. First best job is president. Second best one is governor of Ohio. So look, I don't run for second. I run for first. And that's just the way it has to be, Maria.
So tell me about the issues that are most important as you visit Vermont, Massachusetts. What are you hearing from voters that they see as the most important issue? I mean, I think the economy played out real high in South Carolina and in Nevada, by the way, this weekend. What do you think is most important to voters across the country?
Well, listen, and you know, we went to South Carolina with the same message, and interestingly enough, with the late-breaking voters, I did very well because, look, when I went to 2 weeks ago, people in South Carolina didn't know who I was. And with late-breaking voters, as they learned more, they responded very positively. What are the issues? People are worried about job security, their own job security. They're worried about the fact that their wages are not going up. And they're also worried about the fact that their kids went to college, rung up huge debt, and now they can't find the kind of job that's going to help them to have a good life. And that's what people are fundamentally worried about. And those issues can be addressed by balancing budgets, by reforming regulations, by making sure that you cut taxes. These things can be fixed. We know what the formulas are. We just have to apply them.
Where do you think those voters that were with Governor Bush are going to go at this point? You know, Marco Rubio wants those votes. You want those votes. What are you seeing?
We're going to see over this next week where a lot of those people move, but we've already picked up a number of them, both people who are just key political supporters and also people who raise money. So it'll be a scramble to see where it all goes, and it'll settle down in a few days, and then we'll be looking forward to March 1st.
Governor, let me get your take on one of the big issues that people are talking about right now. That is our national security versus our privacy. Apple has a deadline of this upcoming Friday, to either comply or not comply with the FBI. They're facing this court order to unlock that iPhone that was used by one of the San Bernardino shooters. If you were president, would you force Apple to let America know what was on that phone?
If I were president, we would have had this resolved because we would have got the grown-ups in a room and we would have sat down and said, let's figure this out. And we don't need to be having press conferences. And, you know, I mean, the worst thing here is just being in court over this. This should have been resolved. And it takes a leader to bring people together to structure a compromise where, of course, we can be safe, but that we don't get into the point where the privacy of Americans is threatened and now we're breaking into the phones for a whole variety of things like divorce cases or whatever. I think there ought to be a process whereby when there's a national security issue and something at risk that there's a way to resolve this. And I think it can get resolved, Maria. It needs to be resolved.
All right, we're going to talk about that coming up in the program. Governor, we'll be watching. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Maria. God bless.